Welcome to a new edition of the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino. On this episode, we talk with app developer, platform creator, and community engager Daniel Hafner. He started out building apps with zero ability to write a single line of code, yet somehow figured out how to build an entire app development business. Daniel works with high-level coaches, content creators, and entrepreneurs to put their idea into a tangible, sleek, and scalable app model. He gets pitched app ideas every single day and has learned how to tell the good ones from the bad ones. We get into his history, COVID times, the future, and so much more. Enjoy.
Daniel, thank you for taking a minute out today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too, man. So let's start off here and kind of address the elephant in the room. You know, we've all lived through, this COVID existence, and it's not as though it's done, but it's more of the world is opening up right now. And I'm wondering how you survived that time period and how it changed not only the way that you conduct business, but the way that you kind of view the world and live your life now.
Wow, good question. Well, to be honest, I had started my business, I think it was like a lot of people I've interviewed before, like in January 2020. So in retrospect, it turned out to be a really terrible time, especially with who I was currently serving. I was serving local businesses at the time. So in actuality, I actually didn't really even fully start my business in earnest until probably October of 2020. I just kind of realized, I was like, this is just not working. I just started out. I had a job at the time, and I was kind of doing it as a side hustle. So I didn't really even do anything in earnest, start getting real clients until about October, November of 2020. But then that was really one of the cool pivots that I made was I realized that I didn't need to be targeting local businesses. I should be targeting online businesses and people who do things online. So that just opened up a whole new world for me. And that allowed me to kind of broaden who I was going after, who I was serving. And it helped me, bring in different revenue. I could do different things and I could work with people anywhere. I could all of a sudden now just work with people overseas or in different states as me and all this stuff. So yeah, that really was awesome. And then, as far as how it's changed everything, I mean, for what I do for technology, I've always kind of been, since I adopted that mindset, I've been able to work with people wherever. But, man, it's really been, inside of what I do, I think that's what you asked, like how it's changed things and stuff. But I think people are just, it's not people, it's people and technology. And that's kind of what I deal with more. It's a willingness to adopt new ways, like, with the whole remote working thing, just being open and different to different methodologies, different, flexibilities of everything that's going on. I know it's kind of vague, but I've seen a lot of people just being more willing to adopt different things and try different methods of things because it's just kind of proliferated this knowledge, this willingness to be remote, to try different technologies, to do different things. So yeah, it's been a really interesting couple of years for sure.
I remember a musician when this was really raging and everybody was trying to get their foothold and figure things out. He was a pretty big time guitarist, and I was asking him, what this was like, and it was obviously taking a toll. A lot of tours were canceled, things evaporated instantly, and he was kind of talking about the analogy of going through this like cancer. We all got diagnosed, we're going through this, and we're all going through it together. And with what you're saying, there's this willingness to do things in a different way. There was a singer here in town that had cancer, and I remember asking her at one point, how did you change your life? And she said, I instantly went from no to yes. Like, things that I would typically say no to, I say yes, and I think that kind of feeds into what you're saying. There's a level of adaptability, bendability. I even see that. I have 2 teenage kids at home, and I kept thinking that there has to be a level with this next generation that lived through this that will be more resilient and open and willing to, make life work in a way that other generations didn't have to do.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I see that, and I'm in no position to talk about, like what effect things have had on kids. And I can't even imagine people that had kids going through COVID with all the homeschooling and the remote schooling and all this different stuff that had to go on. I was blessed enough to not have kids during that time frame. So, but yeah, I agree with you. I think it does make it it does kind of lead to a more resilient mindset in a way, and an adaptability and a willingness to pivot, I think is a big thing that came out of that for a lot of people, because it's like, hey, when things change drastically and you have no choice, you got to figure it out. You know, just like everything happened when in March, April timeframe when everything shut down, like people had to figure things out like now. But like that's like a survival instinct almost, you know? So, and there's always like these punctuate, I did a research project on this in college about punctuated equilibrium, and it was related to biology, but that's kind of how it goes in life sometimes. There's these punctuations in life where, you know, you're going along, there's a status quo, there's a status quo, there's a status quo, and then boom, there's this massive shift, and it forces a new reality. It forces a new thing to come into existence, and then a new equilibrium resets itself. And then that goes on, that goes on, that goes on, and then there's another shift. Like it just happens, you know, at these random times. So I think COVID was a major punctuated equilibrium there. Like it reset a lot of things. It like accelerated a lot of things, you know, in some ways. So, no, I completely get what you're saying.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. So let's kind of boil down what you do and who you are, and let's make this something easily digestible to the masses. So I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third graders at a career day, and one of the kids looks up at you and says, "What do you do for a living, and how are you qualified to do it?" How would you answer them?
It's a very good question. I love that. If you can't explain it to a third grader, you can't explain it at all. So here it goes. So I am basically a no-code software and app developer, right? So what that means is that when people want to build software, an app, a platform, a marketplace, whatever they want to build, there's normally a coding process involved in that. You have to write code, you write HTML, JavaScript, all those different languages out there that you have to know how to do, right? Or you have to learn how to do. The no-code aspect of that removes that need to be able to code, so you can drag and drop, you can point and click, you can build things without having to know that skill, to have that skill, right? So that's really beneficial for a lot of people, companies, entrepreneurs, startups, etc. Because if, like when I started, this is kind of how I got qualified, was I just started doing this as a hobby and I built it into a business. I had an idea for a running and fitness app that I wanted to build, right? I had no idea how to code, and I didn't have $100,000 when I went to different agencies, and they're like, that's what this is going to cost. So I eventually went down the road of finding these. I had no idea these platforms existed, that you could build something without learning how to code. I was like, holy moly, this is what I'm talking about. Like, I don't have to go to school. I tried coding for like a week, and I was like, this is not my cup of tea. So long story short, I built the app, I deployed it, and I actually grew it to a place where it started making money and getting notoriety and all that kind of stuff. So I basically started a business without having to put in the six-figure investment, the crazy amount of time and money that is normally required to build that type of stuff. And it was incredible. So that's kind of what I help people do, is figure out those types of things. Can you still hear me?
Absolutely, I can. Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. I think my headphones cut out because everything stopped making noise. So sorry about that.
Yeah, no, you're fine.
Okay, so yeah, that's in essence what it is. That might be the most coherent answer I've ever given, because I was actually just at an event last night, and people, you know, they always ask you, what do you do? What is this? And it's always hard for me to explain that, because I do a bunch of different things for a bunch of different people, still kind of in that phase of, well, if you need this, people coming to me with this. It's a consultancy type of deal. But that's in essence what it is. So I hope that made sense to the third graders in the audience there.
Absolutely, it did. Yeah. And I think that the younger people are savvy enough to understand what you're talking about. And it's interesting to me, being in technology, and I've been in technology for quite a while, since like the late 90s, and there's always these different camps. You have more, like the more modern people now, they get out of school and whatever, they get certifications and they go to school. It's a premeditated thing. And then you have people like you, to a certain degree, that don't have the money, the large sums to do this, so you figure it out. And with me, and this could be a combination of you as well, I was in a company where they were like, we don't want to pay all of this money for people, and you're already doing, say, marketing or something in technology. Let's have you go ahead and take care of the server or do this or do that. I was always kind of woven in because I was already into technology. So I'm curious with you, if you look at that pie chart of the circles and the arcs and how they come in, kind of how did the Nexus Big Bang moment happen for you where you got to where you're at right now? Was it a combination of saving money and being grandfathered in? How did that work for you?
Interesting question. So my background was I actually worked in a quality assurance department for a while where I actually did web app testing. I was trying to break stuff. It was a lot of manual testing. So I never really had to do the development of things, but I kind of had a background in that, and I learned about, agile methodologies and all those types of things, and software development, Scrum, all that kind of stuff. And then I kind of went into the sales world. So I had some sales background experience and a couple different sales jobs, and kind of the stars aligning, crossing paths moment was when I realized, like, okay, I have some sales experience and I have some technology experience, and I kind of wanted to combine those, right? So when I was in the process of building that app that I talked about earlier, I got to the end of it, and I kind of realized, like, I built it because it was a good idea, but I truly didn't have, like, a passion for that industry or that niche that I built it in. I just wasn't, again, it was in running and fitness. I've run a lot. I've been a certified running coach for a while, but it's just not my passion anymore. So I realized, I took a step back and I was like, I built a really cool skill for myself doing this. So, and then at the time I was doing my podcast more often. I had a lot more people I was talking to, and I got to talking to people about it. And they're like, well, I think you could build something for me. You think you could do this for us and whatever. And just all these different ideas happen in conversations. And then it dawned on me, like, holy crap, I could do this as a business. I could just freelance for this, right? So that's kind of how all that came together. So, and then I had some experience because I don't know about you, like, developers are a whole different breed of people. I feel like I can say that because I worked with developers in my old QA job. So, like, they're just a different breed of people. So, like, those are not always, I'm stereotyping here, but I guess it's not like they could always be into sales, right? So for me, I've always been a pretty outgoing person. I've been a very person, like, I can conversate well. That's how I got into sales, right? But I also really I've gotten really into the technology piece of things too. I can nerd out on that kind of stuff. So I kind of developed this hybrid model for myself where, okay, I can still go out and sell people and I can talk to people. I just went to an event last night and signed a couple of people up for a new SaaS that I have, right? So, like, I can do that and be a customer-facing piece for myself, but also kind of put my headphones on and wire in and put some music on and just go to town for 3 hours on building something. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic of how all that kind of came together.
So the other part of this is that, there's all these motivations that are born in you when you're young. Talk to me a little bit about your childhood and how these wheels began to spin to turn into who you are, whether it's running or it's technology. How did all this start for you?
Wow, we're going deep today. All right, sounds good.
Oh, yeah.
Funny, I guess I could talk about entrepreneurship because I never in my life ever really thought I would work for myself. I was kind of raised in a very big family where, it's funny because my mom was one of 7 kids. They all lived on the road. So I had aunts and uncles and cousins all over the road. I was like the oldest kid. So out of like 17, 18 kids. And only a couple of my family members had their own business. But I did notice that the 2 that did had very big houses. They had a lot of toys, a lot of cool things. And then everyone else was kind of in the employee mindset, right? So I kind of had this, I never really even considered being in business for myself as something I would ever do. To be honest, like, I never really thought about it. And then kind of as I got older and I left, I went to school and I didn't really know what I have a political science major. That's what my degree is in. And then I have a cybersecurity policy degree as well. But, so with my wife, she's in the medical field, so we've traveled a lot. So she goes from here to there to, over 3 different years, she's kind of traveling. So as we did that a couple of times, it got pretty hard to hold down a job. And I started to be, I realized that I don't take authority all that well sometimes. So when I learned that about myself, I really, this seed embedded in me that, like, I just wanted to be in control sometimes. I hated taking direction from people. Even though I was a team player, I played sports, I played football, I played baseball, basketball. Like, I always realized it was hard for me to take coaching and take direction. I consider myself to be somewhat coachable, but as I've gotten older, I've realized, like, I'm less coachable. So that kind of lent itself to this, like, hey, let's take a chance on this. Let's just, kind of be the boss and do these things. And then as I've gotten into that, I've realized it's not all it's cracked up to be, that's for sure. But yeah, I actually really haven't thought about that all that much. I just remember, like, I had a cousin and an uncle that they still to this day have their business. They actually both went through divorce and got it completely burned down and rebuilt it all, interestingly enough. So that's been really cool to see how they all grow that and do that, as opposed to all my other, family members who have just had single jobs and gotten laid off at times and had gone through really rough times or really good times. So, yeah, it's been really interesting to think about that. I was not prepared for that answer or that question.
Yeah, I was just thinking about you talking about running. I used to be a runner. I was a cross-country runner in high school, and I can't do it anymore because I have shin splints, and but I bike now, so I love it. It's kind of a nice, I think I enjoy seeing the world from a bicycle more. It makes sense to me.
Interesting. Well, and as far as that goes too, I never was a runner. I think I did one day of cross country and I quit because I was like, this sucks. But I was a football player and a baseball player and basketball player, but I always really loved staying in shape. And then once I left college, I gravitated to running because I didn't want to lift weights anymore. I just did not care to be in the gym at all, like, ever again. So, but running was just always, it's kind of meditative. It was something I could compete against myself with, which I think is a lot, an entrepreneurial type of thing as well. But I haven't done it a whole lot lately. Kind of, like I said, I kind of fell out of the passion of it. But yeah, it was kind of funny because I never was a runner, like, at all. And then I kind of became that after I left college and left organized sports.
I think there's a lot of people that do that. They kind of get into it because it's the path that makes the most sense. But I remember when I stopped running and I really thought about it, I was like, what was I running away from for all those years? So, I mean, it was tongue in cheek, but at the same time, it's like, man, what? And it was, most of it for me was I was really small in high school. I was like 4'11". I couldn't play baseball. I'd look at the baseball players and I was like, God dang it, because that's what I wanted to do. I grew up as a baseball kid, and I just, I didn't have the size, so running made the most sense. But at any rate, the one thing that's interesting about our lives is that, sometimes we're fueled by the people that we look up to, heroes, mentors, role models. Who has that been for you?
I mean, I have a couple of people. Like, I never really knew that there was this thing until I started following people online. Like, you can have, like, they call them, like, these, it's like a mentor from afar, right? Like, I have met this person one time. But I've always considered him like a really cool model and mentor. His name's Garrett J. White. He has a company called Wake Up Warrior. Really never would have thought I'd be attracted to what he talks about and what he does, but, like, he's always been someone that I've followed, like, online. I've met him one time in my life, so, like, not someone super close to me or anything, but just always somebody I really look up to and really, take as an example of things. But in real life, I think my parents, are definitely role models for me. A couple of even my uncles and my cousin that, kind of had their own business for some time, are role models for me because they've always just made it work somehow, and I've always kind of really admired that. But yeah, I would say I don't really have a whole lot of that. Maybe that's a mistake of mine. I don't have, like, a really good in-person real life role model other than that. My wife certainly serves as that. She's in the medical field. I mean, she works like a dog. Like, she just had a 30-hour call the other day. Like, I really admire, she just keeps going when it's really tough, So Yeah, I mean that's kind of my best answer for that. I guess I should probably look for more real life role models.
Well, I mean, everyday heroes. That's it. Nothing is better than your wife. So that
yeah.
makes total sense. Based on the wisdom and the roads that you've been down in your life, let's say you have a dream tonight. You run into your 20-year-old version of yourself, and you could give that version a piece of advice. And this isn't really about regret. It's more about wisdom. What would you tell your young version? What advice would you give it?
Don't be afraid to take chances. You gotta move fast when opportunities happen. I know in the past, even in when COVID hit and different things happened, like I really wasted a lot of time when the iron was hot. And now I see another opportunity coming up for me very soon in the next few months. And I've learned from that to just take action, take imperfect action is what I would tell them. I remember when I was younger, I always had to make sure that my ducks were in a row and that things were lined up. But I think there's wisdom in that and in having a solid foundation in what you're doing. But there's also wisdom in just leaping, in just going for it, even when you don't know like what the outcome might be, what where your landing spot is, or anything like that. Because, like you said, about regret, it doesn't have to be about that, but it can lead to that. I do have regrets on different things that I've missed out on because of that just hesitancy of like, what about my money and what about this and what are they going to think? And like at the end of the day, nobody cares about that, and that's not something, especially. And I'm talking more about the entrepreneurial world, but that's what I would tell myself is like, don't be afraid to just try stuff and take imperfect action, because most of the time, if not all the time, what you're looking for is on the other side of just doing it, of just taking action and pushing through that fear. That's what I would tell myself for sure.
So, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, you're successful because you complete projects and you make people happy. So over this time, what's been one of the best responses from a client, a best happy response from a client that you've ever gotten that really resonates and puts a smile on your face?
Oh, that's easy. I got a video sent to me the other day from a client that I've been working with for the past few months, and she sent in like a video testimonial, whatever you want to call it, and she said that it was one of the best business decisions she ever made to decide to work with me. When I first saw that like come through on my phone, I almost cried. Like that was really impactful. I mean, she's I don't know how old she is. She's older than me, but she's not old, but she's been in business for a while, like way longer than me. And for her to even like say that, I mean, she wasn't just saying it to say it. Like she actually meant it. I could see it and I could hear it. And that was really cool. Like that's where sometimes, you have these long days, these problems you run up against, these hurdles you can't really overcome sometimes. And then you hear somebody say that and you're like, wow, like that makes it all worth it. It really does.
Yeah, that's pretty dynamic for sure. So I saved the hardest one for last. Everyone has a perception of you, your family, your friends, your clients, but ultimately you live your life. You have a perception of yourself. Who do you think you are?
Oh, man. I was not prepared for this today.
No one is. They always get away. It's your therapy session.
Yeah. Who do I think I am? So this is interesting. I've thought about this for a while. I've never really actually verbalized it, so I'm very interested to see how this comes out. I had a thought introduced to me a few months ago. Well, probably longer than that, and I've thought about it a lot. And we talk about this ability to change the trajectory of your family, like not only like mainly financially, right? Just to be like, hey, we can have legacy impact here. We can, your grandfather was one thing, your great grandfather was one thing, your dad was one thing, but you can be the difference in like build generational wealth for your family, for all that type of stuff. So, I've kind of seen myself as that, as I really do have an opportunity with with my great-grandfather, and my grandfather, and my dad, like they've all done very, very good things in the world, but they've never really created that true level of real like financial impact and just like other kinds of impact, right? That I really can see that I want to do for the Hafner family in the future, not only to my kids but their kids and their kids after them. I mean, that's kind of who I see myself as being. Even if I have to be that transitional one to where my son or daughter is able to pick up that torch and really change the impact and the level that the Hafner family can actually have. Even if my life turns into something that's just, I can pass on that wisdom and that training to my children, and they become that person that changes the trajectory of the Hafner family forever, then I'm okay with that too. Yeah, that was interesting. I never actually verbalized that, but that's kind of a thought that I've been thinking about.
Yeah, and I think that's really just kind of a part of, legacy building. Like when your parents say, I want my kids to be better off than me, it's just leaving something positive behind, but really changing the trajectory of your own kind of family dynasty. I mean, I know for me, for instance, I was one of the first generations out of probably 5, 6, if not more, that went to college, and I didn't consciously think I'm doing anything specifically, but I just knew that was kind of a part of the legacy building, and I think that's a good thing to be mindful of. Kind of gives you something to be motivated for each day, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
But hey, Daniel, man, this has been great, and I did want to ask, just kind of aside, when you say, like for instance, like with Google Sites, it's that kind of technology you're talking about where you don't have to do code, but if you want to insert and put things and place things, it's kind of a GUI that can allow you to do it, correct?
Yeah. Yep, that's exactly it. There's all kinds of different. I used to push different ones, and then I realized that was dumb because new ones come out every single day. so it's never good, I think, to just kind of stick to one, because like that's one. I've built different things that I got ideas, and I was like, wow, this software I've used forever would not fit this. Like that first app that I built, I literally tried to put it into like 30 different platforms, because none of them were like, it doesn't have this feature. Or, well, I can do this, but I can't really do this what I want to do. That's kind of one of the drawbacks of no code. But, that being said, yeah, there's a lot of different ways. If you have the idea, you can kind of pull it off. You really can. Yeah,
well, I did web development and did HTML for a while, and I did front page, and then front page just got to the point where you couldn't do it anymore. And I always kind of wanted to do something that was a little bit more aggro and I could get my hands around it, like Dreamweaver. And then I just got to the point where it's like, why not use Google if I want to just do something, if I want to really, get it out there. I mean, there's a lot of tools, there's a lot of ways, and yeah, so it's interesting. But there's thousands of different avenues that you can go down for sure.
Yeah.
So. Well, Daniel, hey, thank you, man. Thank you for opening up. Thanks for taking time out. Good luck with everything. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate the interview. This was pretty insightful. I'm excited. I feel better. Like you said, it was a little bit of a therapy session there.
That's right.
Thanks for tuning in to another famous interview with Joe Dimino, where we cover the world of art, literature, music, technology, and spirituality from around the globe. If you want to hear more interviews, visit the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino channel on YouTube. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.